We're getting new images of the recent U.S. airstrikes against ISIS in Libya. The Pentagon just now releasing this video. But that's not stopping ISIS from planning on staging more attacks in Europe. The New York Times reporting the terror group is sending followers from Syria back to Europe to commit these attacks. The former CIA analyst Tara Mala. What role do we play in this? I mean, it's not necessarily news, but it is more frightening to understand the sort of determination that ISIS has and the organization that they have as well.
Sure. It's not news per se in the sense that it's not surprising that they have these operations going on globally. I think the level of detail in the New York Times report, though, was a bit alarming. It showed the level of organization. It showed the sort of bureaucracy behind this. And it showed that, in a sense, they're making an effort to have individuals be recruited who have sort of clean records. So on the surface, they might not have direct ties with ISIS. So this makes it harder for law enforcement and describes sort of a sleeper cell situation in some countries in Europe where ISIS is intentionally targeting individuals that don't have known ties to the organization so that they can fly under the radar of law enforcement.
You know, what I found interesting, too, is that they're really focused on Europe because it's so much easier for one of their citizens to leave, go to Syria, get this kind of training, and waltz back into the country. I think it's absolutely nuts. Honestly, I think you denounce your citizenship when you do something like that automatically.
Sure, Europe does have a much bigger problem for exactly the reason that you say. It is closer to where the training is happening. It is closer to the organization. Foreign fighter flow numbers are a lot higher. But I don't want to understate the problem in other places because online there's a lot of radicalization going on. And that's actually been a big focus of what my organization, Counter Extremism Project, does, is working on the digital disruption of a lot of this online jihadi material. And we now have technology that we've developed that can be adopted by the tech companies to get some of this content down. It's not just about fighting them where they're at in Syria and Iraq and in Libya. It's about fighting their messaging, which is mostly taking place on the internet.
So yeah, I mean, listen, we know in America that the so-called homegrown terrorist has really had a major impact on our lives. This technology and what you're talking about, though, it feels like a lot of these social media companies feel like their responsibility is limited and that they aren't really that gung-ho about necessarily helping as much as they can.
Sure. Well, the technology companies have done a lot already, but it's been manual. And, you know, they were very resistant originally in the realm of child pornography in terms of adopting a similar technology by the same developer that we're using, which is used to keep child pornography off their platform. So we're hopeful that as public momentum continues to turn in support of this type of technology, unfortunately, because of the terrorist attacks we're seeing where individuals are being radicalized online, we're hoping the tide will turn and the tech companies will come around and use this technology to filter out the worst of the worst in terms of the extremist content that violates their terms of service. So this is not, you know, this is not a freedom of speech issue. It violates their terms of service to have threatening messaging with threats to kill people. That's not allowed on their platforms, and this is a way to get it all down.
Well, maybe if they go at it the way they go after conservative commentators, particularly Twitter, maybe we can get a solution tomorrow. What about the notion, though, of finding people who have already been impacted by this message? It's one thing to say we want to filter it out, but let's say it does reach someone and they continuously grab it. They continuously pull down whatever the articles, the magazine, Inspire, those kind of things. Is there a way to kind of to use the system against that and then zero in on potential terrorists here in our own country?
Really what needs to happen for that is more resources to the intelligence community and to the domestic law enforcement like the FBI. And also, people just need to be vigilant. I mean, basically, law enforcement agencies can collect intelligence in many ways, but at the end of the day, if you see something suspicious, if an individual is being exposed to this content and being radicalized, there may be signs to members of their community, and there may be signs along the way in terms of purchasing weaponry that might set off flags for law enforcement. And I think it really boils down to more resources going to places like the FBI. They have too many cases, not enough resources, and I think part of that is just making sure that they're getting the resources that they need to do their job properly. And they work very hard. There's a number of thwarted plots that have taken place both in Europe and here. Sure. And I think sometimes we forget that. We haven't had a 9/11 scale style coordinated attack. Right. So at the end of the day, they are doing their job, but again, this is a big problem and it's a growing problem. The lone wolf fly under the radar.
There's no doubt we should salute them more often, and we understand why they don't tell us about everyone that they were able to abort. But by the same token, people are starting to say something, and hopefully they'll have the resources to act on it. Tara, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.